Bring me your obsessed, your lovelorn, depressed, all those dreamers too numb to feel. You've tried physicians and phony magicians, but rest assured, I'm very real. A trustworthy man, so please understand, this bargain's a hell of a steal. Just speak your desire, and I will conspire. To make you a devil of a deal.
Greetings, good storytellers. I'm the Artful Narrator, and it is my privilege to welcome you to learning the tropes of writing. Today, we discuss a trope which is classic. One could even say archaic in the best possible way, because it is a literary device which is steeped in history, going back into antiquity, and which is filled with wonderful possibility when it comes to its use as a tool for a writer. Yes, we are working with the deal with the devil trope. Now, allow me to set the scene. For this trope deals with contracts, bargains, desires, people who feel that their dreams are beyond their reach, and that their lives are perhaps a lost cause, and a fiendish trickster, a leprechaun, a far dare, a genie, a devil, who knows that they have the power to grant these desires for a price. But what is the mythos in your story? What is the general knowledge of this deal maker? Are they someone that parents whisper to their children about and tell them to be careful lest they accidentally invoke this being's name? Someone who preys upon those who are downtrodden and whose desires get the better of their judgment? Or is this someone who has been very active in the past, but has recently been more elusive, and so people are no longer on their guard, no longer wary and fearful of accidentally becoming ensnared in such a contract? A wonderful way to establish a bit of the lore about this deal maker and to set the stage for the story and the fiendish difficulties that are to come is to make use of one of the oldest ways that stories are passed down from generation to generation, the idea of fairy tales and children's stories. Because many fairy tales begin as some sort of a lesson, something that parents wish to teach their children. But through generation after generation and iteration after iteration, the meanings and lessons behind these fairy tales can become lost, and they can eventually be seen merely as fanciful tales. And yet, most stories have a grain of truth to them. And so, with this one example from The Witcher 3, you can see that Geralt enters into a bargain with Gaunter O'Dim, a strange and enigmatic character with powers seemingly greater than any of the sorcerers or wizards that Geralt has encountered before. And when going to the crossroads to meet with Gaunter O'Dim, the Witcher happens upon a group of children singing a child's song about someone who ensnares people in contracts, offering them gold and jewels, but who inevitably and eventually brings them to the point where he torments them for their poor choices as part of the bargain.
His smile fair as spring, as towards him he draws you. His tongue sharp and silvery as he implores you. Your wishes he grants as he swears to adore you. Gold, silver, jewels, he lays riches before you. dues need be repaid, and he will come for you. All to reclaim, no smile to console you. He'll snare you in bonds, eyes glow in a fire, to gore and torment you till the stars expire.
This is a wonderful device to hint at what is to come, to give you a sense of the full devilish power of this individual. And it lends extra flair and wonderful character to the individual of Gaunter O'Dim, for later we hear him whistling that same melody of the child's song, showing that he is aware of this old story and may even be quite pleased by it.
I knew you'd come.
You a soothsayer?
It matters little who I am. Your escape, I made it possible. Previously, Yennefer, you found her thanks to me, so you feel you owe me.
But now that you have set the stage, now that you have given the reader some understanding of this deal maker, we come to the meat of a deal with the devil story, and that comes in the form of the contract. Because deal with the devil characters are normally very lawful beings. Not benevolent, no. Not kind-hearted, but lawful. They have a sense of honor. They will act and are bound to act within the confines of the bargain that they make. Now, being the individual who makes the bargain means that, of course, they shall place in loopholes, clauses, and fine print, all structured to make sure that they will come out on top. But still, because they are bound by the contract, it means that your protagonist has a chance to reason with them using the contract and find some way to either distort the contract in such a way or discover a beneficial loophole such that they can either break the contract or make that which they're offering this deal maker so worthless that the deal maker no longer desires it and breaks the contract themselves, or nullifies the contract themselves. And a wonderful example of this idea of two people of two beings grappling over the contract and the protagonist attempting to break it can be found in the Star Trek The Next Generation episode Devil's Due, wherein we are introduced to the Ventraxians, a people who long ago made a bargain with their mythology's personification of the devil, a being known as Ardra, and there, in exchange for Ardra doing away with their wars, famine, and economic ruin, and offering the Ventraxians 1,000 years of paradise, the Ventraxians agree to offer themselves over to Ardra at the end of the appointed time. And with it appearing that this prophesied time has finally come and that Ardra has returned and is demanding that the debt be paid, it falls to Picard to arbitrate on behalf of the Ventraxians and see if he can break this contract.
I've encountered many who are more credibly to be called the devil than you.
The devil. Now there's one I haven't heard in a long time.
You claim you visited this planet 1,000 years ago and negotiated a contract?
That's correct.
I would like to see that contract.
But while we see here these themes of the deal maker and all their powers and all their desires, we should not miss the opportunity to showcase the personality and the overall soul of this deal maker. Because oftentimes the devilish deal maker, be they a genie, a fardarig, a leprechaun, or the devil himself or herself, they are oftentimes shown to be this collector, this almost sort of pawnbroker of souls, someone who either is just trying to amass as many souls as possible or as many powerful items or items of singular importance so that they can then perhaps bargain these items off to other individuals in exchange for greater things or whatnot. But still, just because this is an individual who barters and trades does not mean that they do not have a grander motive other than just the amassing of power. And a wonderful example of this can be found in the fantastically fairy tale-esque series, Once Upon a Time, where we are introduced to the character of Rumpelstiltskin, a eminent deal maker, weaving contracts and screwing people over as he plays upon their desires, all the while seemingly building towards some overarching scheme. And through the course of the show, we learn what it is that this devilish dealmaker desires. What is the one thing that this individual who offers so many people their heart's desires, what is the one thing that is beyond his power to attain, and the one thing which he would move heaven and earth and tear down entire worlds to acquire? And in learning this, we see a beautiful human side of him and understand both his origin and his heart. And that for all his power, he is just as human, just as frail, and just as sympathetic as any of the people who he has bargained with. And that is a wonderful aspect of this devilish deal maker, of this deal with the devil trope, is that it focuses on things that are so human, wants and desires, because to have things that appear beyond our reach, to have dreams that appear unfulfilled, to have desires that seem like lost causes, is something that is so intrinsically human, something so tied with the way that we interact with the world. It is easy to see how a being of such power as this trickster could prey upon those desires and find ways to ensnare our protagonists, our characters, our heroes.
All magic comes with a price.
Well, how does it work?
Fear not. My needs are small, and all you have to do is sign on the dotted line. Do we have a deal?
But I'll offer you one final interesting variation on this trope, and that comes in the form of a proverb. For up until this point, we have been looking at contracts, where it is most likely that the protagonist understands to some degree what it is that they are offering and the importance of this bargain and the power of the individual they're bartering with. And while it is oftentimes the case that this individual is asking for the protagonist's soul or something more insidiously open-ended like just a favor, still, all of these are very high-stakes things. And it requires the protagonist to be in a very dark place or a very needful, tragic place to make such an important bargain. But what if the deal maker instead asks for something that is simple, mundane, fiendishly unspectacular, something so everyday that the protagonist will not have their suspicions aroused. And this deal maker, in this instance, may not appear in all their grandeur and all their splendor, not appear as a seductor or seductress or some phenomenally cosmic being. They may merely appear as some sort of a wizened individual on the road, someone who is offering the protagonist some pretty bauble, something with a bit of enchantment to it and a chance that it might come in handy someday, that it might have the power to fulfill their wish, and merely asks for a trifle in exchange. And the protagonist, believing that they are either doing a good deed for this person or doing a kindness to them by accepting their gift and giving them something in return, will say, certainly, of course, I will be glad to have this trade with you. And only then, later, do they begin to realize that this simple thing that this deal maker took from them was in fact the linchpin that would cause everything else to fall apart. And the proverb that I spoke of that is a superb example of this goes thusly. For want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. For want of a horse, the rider was lost. For want of a rider, the message was lost. For want of a message, the battle was lost. For want of a battle, the war was lost. For want of a war, the kingdom was lost. All for want of a nail. Something so small, so tiny, so simple, bringing the downfall of an entire realm. That would be a truly magnificent feat for any fiendish being, for any devilish deal maker to pull off, and would certainly show their power and their insidious brilliance. But however you choose to use these themes, whether you choose to have this devilish dealmaker offer power to your antagonist and elevate them to a position where they can then threaten the hero, or whether this devilish dealmaker is themselves the antagonist, someone who made a bargain to the protagonist, a bargain which the protagonist must now find a way to break. Still, this is a canvas upon which you can paint your story and apply such variations as are best suited to your story, taking into account the persona and specific character of your dealmaker and what mythos they bring to the table. But as always, thank you very much for watching, and I hope that this video has been informative, or at the very least, a pleasant diversion. Until next time.
I trust you're satisfied with all I did provide, but there's no such thing as a free meal. And though it may sound droll, it's time to pay the toll. Oh, I'll love watching you writhe and squeal.